Hey everybody, it's Suzanne, and it is now March, which happens to be International Women's Month. And obviously, we are a big group of women plus Ian here. And I've recently had the pleasure of meeting Melanie Pellegrini of Pellegrini Design. So I thought it was fitting to kick off this month with interviewing an awesome local woman like her. And your business is Pellegrini Design. You're an interior designer, but we actually got connected through a mutual friend because of our shared love of historic homes. So we'll talk about that a little bit in history and all of that as well. But let's get to know you. So tell me, because I think you have such an interesting and specialized background. So tell us about your background and kind of where you were and where you are today.
Sure. So I grew up here in Massachusetts. And I've always loved artwork and crafting and things like that when I was young. My mom definitely signed me up for as many arts and crafts classes as possible. And my mom was very crafty as well. She was also super into redecorating the house constantly. She still is.
What's her style? Like traditional or modern or?
I would definitely say transitional.
Transitional.
Yeah. She's probably transitional contemporary.
Cool.
So I think my love for historic homes came from a different aspect of my life. They had, built their house from scratch, so I wasn't really around historic homes until I went to college. So that's kind of, in art school, my teacher really encouraged me to go to, in high school, my teacher really encouraged me to go to an art college, and as well as my mother. So I went to Mass Art.
Awesome. And that's in Boston.
That's right in downtown Boston, yeah. And one of the first history classes I took had to do with the history of architecture. And I just fell in love with, all the different historic styles and the craftsmanship, and was lucky enough to be right in downtown Boston where I could see a lot of, older buildings. Historic New England, which was called SP&EA at the time, had owned several properties in the Back Bay and downtown, and I could go and tour those.
So cool.
Yeah, so, and then I took a class. I really loved it so much, I just kept taking classes on the history of architecture, and I took one that was specific to urban development in Boston, and why the buildings and neighborhoods were torn down and redesigned, and in what styles. And that just really gave me a love for preservation. But at the time, it was the early 90s, and it was, everything was getting into computers and computer graphics. So I kind of wound up getting steered into that direction, because I also kind of had a love for just building things on the computer. My dad's a computer engineer. So I went into web design, and I did that for a little while, and also branding. I designed logos and things like that. But it just wasn't satisfying because I was kind of designing in this 2D box.
Yeah, not the same.
No,
yeah.
So I really wanted that experiential, physical experience of my work. So I went back to school. Originally, I was going to go for historic preservation, and I was involved in many. I took a few classes. I went to many lectures and workshops, and I was an SP&EA member, and I toured, houses every weekend all over Massachusetts.
So, yeah, because they own a lot of properties.
Yeah, Massachusetts and Connecticut. Yeah. And so I basically just decided, maybe interior design is more in the realm, whereas preservation is, I think, it just seemed a little less attainable of a career, where I wouldn't get as much satisfaction. So so I went to Suffolk University. I got my master's in interior design, and then from there I actually went into the commercial field. I did a little bit of residential lighting, but the commercial side of things kind of opens up a whole new avenue of, I would say, creative outlets. Working with the clients is a little different. They really rely on you to kind of come up with the basic ideas.
Right, the theme and is this was there a certain genre like restaurants or office spaces, or and because you're working with an architectural firm, I think you said, right?
Yeah, I was at CBT Architects, which is one of the largest multidisciplinary firms in Boston.
Awesome.
And I dabbled a little bit in hospitality and multifamily residential, but I really stuck with office space, like designing corporate workspaces. And I think part of that was from my branding background, because you have to work with their brand and you kind of design everything around their brand.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, they can all be so different, which I really loved. So kind of combining those two things, that was definitely my focus at that point. But then during COVID, the way we did work with clients changed. Just that industry, like designing office spaces, that kind of just got put on hold for everyone.
Makes perfect sense. Like all of a sudden there's no offices and everybody's downsizing, and it's just like changed on the dime.
And they just didn't know what how the future of work was going to be. So, we didn't have like a crystal ball. So everyone was just kind of waiting. It was like a wait and see. And then in the meantime, I had, I'd worked on my own homes, and I've done work for like friends and relatives and in residential. And I thought, now's my time to really jump into that, and get more into some of those things that I love about like working on older homes and the charm of, the existing woodwork and the craftsmanship. And I think my style too is a little bit more, it's like a mix of traditional and contemporary, but I really am drawn to the old colors and textures and patterns of like wallpapers and fabrics and things. So
like kind of timeless.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that you might look in a book and find something that's like, oh yeah, that they were using that 100 years ago and it still looks good.
Definitely.
Type of thing. That's very, very cool. So now you've transitioned more the past couple of years into, so you have your own firm, Pellegrini Design, and you're doing mostly residential for homeowners and things like that.
Yeah, I do. So I am a certified interior designer. So that's the National Council for Interior Design has, an exam. It's similar to the architectural exams. There's 3 exams, and it's mostly based on interior architecture, safety, so like codes and things, but also it has everything to do with like project management and budgeting and ethics. So I have more technical training with interior architecture. So some of the services I offer is I kind of call it remodeling drawings. So I can do space planning, I can do drawing sets for construction, for permit. So I have a lot of clients who just do that, and they kind of pick out their own finishes and furniture.
So like a kitchen, for example, so you could draw the kitchen plan, or you could draw they want to add, built-ins and like totally revamp a room and take down a wall or whatever. You could, provide those architectural drawings, or I don't know what the technical term is, but that then they could show the town and show their builder and all that. Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So that's one of the things I offer. And then another thing I offer is doing, all of the furniture and the decor and the paint, the lighting, fixtures, everything. So I do selection, and I do procurement, which is where my client will actually purchase the goods directly from me. And I will coordinate the install and the delivery of everything. And then sometimes that also includes, architectural drawings and moving walls, and working with the contractor. And as part of that service, I can also, coordinate with the contractor and installers all the way through, the very end. So that is really more of like a comprehensive full service design package. And then the last thing I offer is what's called Designer for a Day. So that's where, someone might be wanting to work with an interior designer, but they're just not ready to make a commitment. So, for like more of a longer term project. So that would be like where I would meet with them and consult with them for a couple hours and figure out what their needs are. And then we'll come up with like a plan for a full day together. So then I'll come back and work with them like one-on-one dedicated time with whatever it is from, you know, it could be helping them narrow down finishes, like if they're doing a new build or remodel, and their contractors on them trying
right,
to
like
get...
you gotta get that tile,
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
you like go to the store and you're overwhelmed because
Exactly.
I think there's like too many choices.
And it's hard to
sometimes.
pick like what's gonna go with what and look good, especially
Yes.
when like the samples
Yeah,
can be really small.
exactly. Yeah, it's so true.
Yeah. So, and I can even do like I can even bring my laptop and go to the showroom and look at the finishes, and I can actually like Photoshop in what it would look like, so that they, you know, can see some
the visual
renderings.
Yeah, because I think it's so hard for most people. So like,
make a decision.
how's that gonna look with this? And I find like the downfall sometimes with, say, new construction is not having it be cohesive. So it's sort of like one room has certain finishes or a certain look, and then, you know, they're not kind of thinking about the whole picture, and it doesn't quite tie together. So it's, you know, the lighting, I'm a huge fan of lighting, like, you know, again, a lot of people kind of forget, and then to your point, it's like a last minute, like, hey, we need those selections, and then you're just grabbing whatever's available, and that's been hard because there hasn't been, you know, everything's special order. It takes a long time these days because of the supply chain stuff. So that's really cool. And I think, I mean, we had the pleasure of meeting a month or so ago and kind of getting to know each other, and we were talking about how, you know, I find a lot of times people ask me like for, you know, we need an interior designer, but they're scared. Like they feel like it's a big commitment, you know, to take that leap. And so I think I love the designer for a day because it feels like a great way. It's like you're consulting, you know, you're getting to know each other. You can give them a taste of sort of what it would be like, but on both sides, like you want to make sure, you know, you're comfortable with them and they're comfortable with you. And then I'm sure a lot of smaller things lead to bigger things, right? Like someone calls you like, oh, I just want to redo this one room, and then next thing you know, there used to be a section about that in This Old House magazine. It was like the stories of like, we just wanted a bigger TV, and then we ended up doing like a $500,000 like addition because that one little change can lead to like, you know, you're revamping like the entire house. It's kind of funny. So.
And I think that's also something that like an interior designer brings, is that, you know, a lot of times people will say like, oh, I just want help picking paint colors. And it's like, the way I see it, I don't pick paint colors, I create a palette.
Nice.
You know, it's a process, and like I'm thinking through, you know, everything, like what are the other pieces in the room, what's the light like what's the rooms adjacent to it like. So like you're saying, like you're really thinking of beyond just the one task at hand. So I think as an interior designer, like that's kind of where your expertise comes in, is because you can advise, you know, not just based on like, we like this color, but like there's all these other things to think about, and here are my recommendations.
I love it. And it's so true. It's the same thing. Like when we go into people's homes, or like if you were to go to my house, you would, you know, it's like you can't see your own house in that like objective light or whatever, or subjective. I always mix those words up, but do you know what I mean? So it's like just getting an outside perspective is so helpful, and I think so important for like fresh set of eyes and thinking about things that, you know, when you're living in the space, you're never gonna think of it that way. So it's so exciting to get that like, hey, have you thought about this, and trying that. So
it's also about building confidence. I think everybody wants to be confident when they make decisions, and if you're not confident and you start second guessing your decisions, you might like fall out of love with what you picked. But you know, if I can help work with someone to like build their confidence, they're gonna love it like that much more and just feel satisfied.
No, I love that. That's huge, because
that's like the biggest thing, honestly. That's the secret right there.
Yeah, that's very, very cool. So what's your like motivator? Like what really gets you like up and excited every day? Like what's another kind of underlying passion that you have?
Yeah, so I definitely like to keep busy, and I don't like to put all my energy and focus in one thing. I like to diversify, because I think that, you know, definitely keeps me motivated. But aside from design, the other thing I've been doing for quite a while is teaching. So I've been adjunct faculty teaching at the college level for about 13 years now.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I've taught at Suffolk University, and currently I'm teaching at Endicott College, which is in Beverly. And I just love being around kind of like the next generations, and understanding, or getting a little insight into their point of view and like how they kind of see things and what makes them excited. And that makes me excited, like they open my eyes to a lot of like fresh new ideas and concepts, and just like maybe things that I haven't thought about, or if things are kind of changing and I'm not in touch with all the different things, they kind of open my eyes. But also, like, the main thing is really just knowing how much of an impact I can have on their lives, and like how I can bring my experience and my knowledge base to them to kind of build up the quality of their work, but also just to give them confidence to be a good designer, and really feel like they have a solid understanding and foundation of design when they get out of school.
That must be a great class. Like, I can just picture like the topics and the like. Do you follow like this similar syllabus every year, or do you kind of change it up depending on like what's happening or who the students are? Or?
Yeah, I definitely look at. I teach several different classes, but I definitely look at the syllabus. And if I've taught it previously, I think about like what didn't work or what would work better. But at the same time, I'm always thinking how I can bring my most current professional experiences to the classroom and those stories, so they can learn from like my stories. So I'm always adding new content, and I bring in guest speakers, so different professionals within the field. We'll go on field trips. So I use a lot of my network contacts to really expose them to as much as possible.
Where's like a field trip that you went on recently?
Well, we're actually planning one right now to a big millwork shop up in Newburyport. It's called Mark Ritchie Woodworking, which is also part of Wild Goldfinger. So they're one of the largest custom millwork and custom furniture shops in Massachusetts.
Oh my god!
And
can I come?
Yeah, I know.
And I want to take your class too. I'll be like Billy Madison, like whatever. Go back to school.
Yeah,
I'm sure they won't realize.
It's awesome, and like part of being a teacher, I care about sustainability, and I want my students to care about it too. So this shop, they actually. They have, a huge solar array on the roof, and they also have like some wind turbines.
No way.
And they have generators that do all of the heating, which is they use all of the wood waste, the wood scrap waste, for all of the heating and for the generator. So everything is kind of like off grid,
like self-sustaining
and reused. Yeah, exactly.
What's it called again?
It's Mark Ritchie Woodworking.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so it's just a really great example of how something within the interior design world can still be sustainable.
Yeah. It's funny you say that, because I feel like I've been meeting more and more people in places that I didn't think it existed. Like I met an amazing woman recently that just specializes in green investments. So like all of her clients, they want to invest their money and feel like it's safe, but they aren't comfortable in investing in companies that aren't green and sustainable and earth conscious and all that. So I was like, that's so cool. And she said predominantly her clients are very young. So it is definitely like the next generation is so much ahead of like where we were back then, blessedly. So it's really cool. I love it. And speaking of kind of like, next generation and future and all that, of course, one question that people always ask is like, what trends are you seeing? Like, it's the start of 2023. Are people calling you with certain projects? Are you kind of hearing certain things, or are you seeing in your, travels, certain trends, whether it's little or big, but kind of what do you see coming?
Yeah, so I would say the white on white trend is, I think, starting to kind of like go by the wayside. I'm definitely seeing a lot of like full saturated kind of color palettes, where there's like green walls, a green ceiling.
I love that. So rich.
Green velvet drapes.
Yeah.
Like very rich, kind of the opposite of the white on white. But also, like, wallpaper is definitely having its moment right now, which I'm so excited about because
Me too.
I'm always wallpapering something.
Same. Well, it's funny because I'll tell people to take down their wallpaper from the 70s or 80s.
Yeah.
No offense to those generations. And then people be in my house, and I've done wallpaper in 2 or 3 rooms, and they're like, "You're such a hypocrite." But it's, today's wallpaper, it's like, it's not the Laura Ashley of our parents' generations.
Right.
And I think it's such a beautiful way to get more depth in a room, and it's you can take it down. It's not unchangeable.
Right.
I mean, it's expensive, oftentimes to put it up and whatnot, but it's also come so far with the application, because the worst is when you're taking wallpaper down in a house and it's like that glue, from back in the day. So it's come so far, like anything else. I think there's so many beautiful lines, and there's all the peel and stick if you don't want to commit.
That's right.
Either.
Yeah.
And there's some really cool designs. So that's cool. So you think wallpaper's having a great moment?
Yeah, I definitely think it is. I think the tricky thing is a lot of like the neutral palettes, like a few years ago it was kind of like everything was gray, and now I think it's kind of like everything is white. And then there's also currently a lot of like light oak, wood throughout, whether it's on the wood or the kitchen cabinets or like shelving, fireplace surrounds. I think the neutrals tend to be the trendiest things because they're safe. When I work with my clients, I tend to just like ignore the trends and just really understand my client's personality. I spend a lot of time up front getting to know them, getting to know their lifestyle, their interests, their hobbies, their history a little bit, understand like what their most treasured items are, and then I tailor the design to them. So it's very personal, it's very specific, and I do like to use a lot of color and pattern. So that's where like the trends, I think, are great for someone who, especially like the younger generations, like they don't have like
heirloom
lifetime of experience or family heirlooms, or they haven't collected things over time. So they're kind of seeing what's very popular. But then as people get older, I think they create this whole life for themselves, and they want their space to reflect themselves and not just what's popular.
Yeah, that's awesome. Is there anything else that you would like people to know before we sign off?
Just that I do have a website, and there's a lot of information on there. I used to do website design, so like I hope it's pretty good. But
it is.
If anyone wants more information on the different services I offer, I have a lot of information on my website. I also have all my contact info, and I would say that I'm a pretty approachable,
yes, you are,
down-to-earth person.
That's why we love you.
Laid-back, easygoing person, I think. So I would absolutely love to hear from people.
Awesome. Well, that's great. And we'll share all the information. What do I say? Like in the link below, or tag or something. I don't know. But no, we'll have all your information as we're sharing this, through social media and whatnot too. And look forward to talking more and diving in deeper. So thank you for coming over, and thanks for your time. And it's been exciting getting to know you. So
thanks
look forward
for having
to more.
me.
Our pleasure.
It's been fun.
Yay! Awesome. Decorate away.